Hey, what is going on guys? RVZ Stealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best mid lane champions for Preseason 5, patch 4.21. And I just want to let you guys know that the order I place the champions in really doesn't matter too much. The champion at the number 1 spot is usually a bit stronger than the champions on the honorable mentions, and you guys are obviously not going to 100% agree with my list, but if the champions are anywhere on my list, then they are all strong picks, so I would recommend playing any of them if you want to. So starting off at the number 5 spot, I have Katarina. Pros to Katarina are she's got insane snowball potential. If you can pick up your core AP items early in the game as Katarina, then she can start to do an insane amount of damage because pretty much all of her abilities do AoE damage. So if you can get a fully channeled ultimate off on multiple targets in a team fight, then it just brings for so much burst. She can also pretty much one-shot any squishy come late game, and she's also a pretty strong roamer as well because of the gap closer on her E. Cons to Katarina are she is pretty weak against high CC opponents unless you're really confident in your Katarina play. Personally, I wouldn't pick Katarina into enemy team comps that have a lot of CC because I'm not confident enough to jump in at the right time and get a fully channeled ultimate off, because if you are going up against high CC enemy teams, it's going to be really hard to even get a fully channeled ultimate off because they're probably going to save their CC for when you jump in. And she also is a little bit weaker against ranged champions, for example, Xerath and Orianna. So if you are getting poked down in the early game, then I would just recommend staying back and trying to farm up with your Q as much as you can. So next up on my list, I have Syndra. Pros to Syndra are she's got great pick potential, some of the best pick potential in the game with her QE combo. She also has strong CC with her W and her E, and she can move while casting her Q as well, which is something that not a lot of people think about as a big pro to her, but it allows her to kite away and still do damage. She also has insane single target burst with her full combo, and she's a very strong laner as well because of all the poke that she brings. Cons to Syndra are she doesn't have any mobility, and Zhonya's also counters her pretty hard because when she's channeling her ultimate, if the enemy has Zhonya's and they use it, then it's going to negate a lot of your damage. And a good Fizz player and a good Zed player will also counter Syndra pretty hard because when Syndra starts channeling her ultimate, Fizz will just use his E and Zed will use his ultimate to negate a lot of your damage. Next up on my list, I have Ahri. So pros to Ahri are she's got insane pick potential with her charm. And if you can find a pick with your charm in a team fight on a high priority target, then you're going to be able to burst them down really quickly, and you can just win games really easily by doing that. She also has super strong mobility with her ultimate, and she's got pretty good wave clear as well with her Q. She's also a very strong roamer because of her ultimate and her charm, and she's got great sustain as well with her passive. She also snowballs really hard, and she's strong even if she falls behind because there's always that chance of coming back with Ahri if you can land your charm on a high priority target in a team fight, because if you can land your charm, then you're probably going to be able to burst them down if they're a squishy champion, which could ultimately end up with your team winning the team fight, because if you land it on, say, an AD carry and you kill them, then your team could turn that around pretty quickly. Cons to Ahri are she is semi-mana hungry, so I would recommend convincing your jungler to hand over blue whenever possible. If you are spamming your abilities, then you will run out of mana pretty quickly with her. And she also is very skill shot reliant. If you aren't confident in landing your skill shots, then Ahri probably isn't your best champion because all of her damage is basically reliant on landing her charm. And if you can't do that, then you're missing out on pretty much her whole kit. So next up on my list, I have Fizz. Pros to Fizz are he's super slippery, which basically means that it's really hard to target him in team fights. And because of his Zhonya's and because of his E, it seems like he's just untargetable forever. He's also got a CC engage with his ultimate, which not a lot of champions have, which is really unique, and it makes him a strong pick for that aspect. He is also a very strong team fighter because of all the burst damage that he can bring, and he's also got pretty strong CC as well, like I said. He's also got great roaming potential because of his mobility and because of his ultimate, and he snowballs really hard as well. Cons to Fizz are he is pretty weak when behind, so if you're going up against a champion who's going to poke you down in the early game, then I would recommend starting Flask because you want to be able to stay in lane and just farm up as much as you can with Fizz, because if you do fall behind, then he's not going to have enough burst to jump on a target and kill them. And if he falls behind, then he probably won't have Zhonya's yet, so then when he goes in, he's going to get focused pretty easily after he uses his E. So if you are in a little bit of a harder matchup, then just start Flask to make sure that you can sustain the early game. So number 1 on my list for Preseason 5 patch 4.21 is Orianna, and this is a little bit of a biased pick because I really enjoy Orianna and I've had really great success with her lately, but I do believe she's a really strong pick. So pros to Orianna are she's got a very good laning phase, she really doesn't have any hard counters in lane. She's also got an insane ultimate, and if you can get her ultimate off on multiple targets in a team fight come late game, then it could single-handedly just win you the game because it's got so much damage, and if she can follow that up with her W, then it just brings for a load of damage and a load of AoE damage. She's also got great utility with her E, her W, and her ultimate, and she's got strong zoning potential as well with her ball. She also snowballs really hard, and she's got short cooldown abilities, especially on her Q. Late game, her Q is on like a 2-second cooldown, so you can just keep moving that around and get a lot of damage off that way. Cons to Orianna are she is pretty mana hungry, so I'd recommend building a tier and convincing your jungler to hand over blue whenever possible. And her ball can also be hard to track at times in teamfights, especially if you place it on a teammate. You could lose sight of it at times. Honorable mentions for this patch include LeBlanc, Akali, Xerath, Azir, Cassiopeia, and Talon. So the reason why LeBlanc isn't on my top 5 is because she is a little bit harder to play than pretty much all the champions on my list, and she's got so many different combos that she can use, and there's so many ways that you can mess up while playing her. If you are a LeBlanc main though, and you know all of her combos, she's got great mobility, great burst damage, but I just feel like she's more of a risky pick than the champions on my list because you can easily mess up while doing her combos, as opposed to the champions on my list are a lot easier to pull off. Akali, the reason why she's not on my top 5 is because of her laning phase. It's really weak, and she is easily countered by pink wards as well. However, if she can get a couple kills in the early game, then she snowballs really hard, and she's got insane single target burst damage. So if you can get a couple good roams off and get your kills as Akali, then she's a pretty good pick as well. Xerath is the best poke champion in the game right now, in my opinion, so if you're looking for a good siege or poke champ, then I would definitely recommend playing Xerath. Azir is a pretty strong pick as well. He's pretty much strong throughout the whole game. He's got a really strong late game though, because his soldiers are going to do a lot of damage, and if he gets attack speed, then he's going to be able to put out a lot of AoE damage with those in team fights. And his ultimate is also a really strong ability for like trapping the enemies inside an area or just disengaging. So Azir is definitely still a very strong pick if you know how to play him correctly. And Cassiopeia recently received some pretty big buffs to her early game. She has that really strong ultimate, but now with the recent buffs that she received, I think she's a lot stronger pick now because her early game isn't as bad. And if she's kind of like Orianna, where if you can land a good ultimate in a team fight come late game, then it can completely just win you the game. And Talon is the only AD champion on my list for this patch. I do believe he is a little bit stronger than Zed because his damage isn't easily countered by Quicksilver Sash or Zhonya's, and he's a lot easier to play in my opinion. So yeah, Talon is, in my opinion, the best AD mid laner right now. He's got really good burst damage, and he's got pretty good mobility as well with his ultimate and his E, and decent CC as well with his W. So I'd recommend playing any of these champions on my list, guys. If they're on honorable mentions or in my top 5, they're all strong picks, so the order really doesn't matter too much. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, then be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're wondering why I didn't include a certain champion on my list, then be sure to comment below asking me why, and I'll get back to you on that shortly. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.